It's now 5 months since in Iran, Mahsa Amini died in police custody shortly after being arrested for not adhering to the country's rules on how women should cover their heads in public. Her death sparked the biggest political unrest in Iran for years, with thousands of women and men taking to the streets. Many who demonstrated were either arrested or killed, and we're going to take a look now at where the situation is in Iran 5 months on from this. I'm joined now on set by Chowra Makaremi from the University of Montreal. Thank you for joining us here today. You are an expert in Iran and notably wrote the book about the 1979 Iranian Revolution. I'd like to ask you, first of all, is this movement losing its momentum a little bit? We've heard less about it, certainly outside Iran, in recent weeks.
It entered another phase. Actually, what we heard about were the insurrections of fall 22. So it was the first stage, and it was very vivid in the streets, and it was breaking a lot of red lines, a lot of political boundaries that were set for the last 40 years. That was very impressive. If Mahsa Amini's death started this huge movement, it's because she was Kurdish, and her parents refused to bury her at night in secret. And on the contrary, there were a large civil society of, teacher union movement, feminist union movements who organized her funerals as a political moment. And this shows that there was this very active civil society that, carried these demands for women's life freedom. This hasn't erased, this hasn't been smashed by the repression. And what we see now is a political organization of the Iranian society in order to kind of carry on another phase of that confrontation with the state with political demands. So we have seen opposition leader like Green Movement leader Mir-Hossein Mousavi, who's in house arrest for 13 years now. He has written a letter saying that no change is possible in Iran within the frame of the theocracy. So he demands a regime change as well. And this is the first time, this is very new, because for the last 13 years, he hasn't done that. And 400 political and civil society figures in Iran have signed a letter of support to his letter. And we have also 2 days ago 20 unions and organization within Iran who have signed a common letter. So they have come to a common demand asking for change, for separation of church and the state, for equal pay for women and men. So we are very much into the women life freedom movement yet, for the release and conditional release of all political prisoners. Many political prisoners have been released. And when they were released, the women political prisoner released, they photographed themselves outside of the prison without the hijab. So it shows that we are released, but we are not going to, stand aside. We are pursuing the fight. So I think that it's changing forms.
So you've talked a little bit about new demands. What has been achieved so far in terms of, for example, the morality police? What incremental changes have they managed to achieve over these 5 months of protest, aside from what they would like further to achieve?
Absolutely. It has to be reminded that the abolition of the morality police or the abolition of forced hijab has never been a demand of this movement. This movement has chanted down with the dictator and has chanted, we want a regime change since the first day. And this is in continuation with, insurrections from 2017 to 2019. The insurrectional movement was kind of cut by the COVID, but there's a strong demand for change that is not from yesterday. It's not dated from the death of Mahsa Amini. But what has been achieved so far is the fact that today in the street many women don't wear the hijab anymore, although they're forced to. It's a kind of a change of values, affects, a political climate within the Iranian society, and this is huge because before that the Iranian society was they were respecting the red lines and the boundaries set by the state. There were borders that were never crossed. And now slogans are written on the walls. Women perform their contestation in ways that are radically different. And for the morality police, I think that in the West or as observers, we should be cautious because it's possible that tomorrow the morality police is being abrogated by the state. But what we should know is that there are other apparatuses put in place. There is video surveillance with facial recognition, and then messages sent, SMS sent to the woman, threatening them with closure of the bank account, closure of the social security services, and within these new modes of very tight technological surveillance, tomorrow they can abolish the morality police as a police force in the street. It doesn't mean that they will abolish their surveillance. So, we shouldn't take the morality police and its possible abolition or reconfiguration, new shapes, as a characteristic to, measure the political change in Iran.
We don't have much time. I'd just like to ask you if you can answer briefly. I'm interested in two groups. In rural areas, how much traction has this thing gained? And also, does the movement feel was it disappointed in the lack of international support compared to some movements?
So the main outcome and the main feature of these insurrections were that there were both, in the great cities, in the higher middle class students movements, and also in the rural movements and in the ethnic national peripheries like Sistan, Baluchistan and Kurdistan. So it's the way they were transgender, transclass and transnation that was really a big gain and the first, time for the Iranian society, where all the portions of the society united in the contestation.
And international support?
So for the international support, the inclusion of the Guardians of the Revolution within a sanctioned group by the European Commission will be in discussion on the 20th of February, Monday, and the Iranian diasporas abroad are wanting to go and to protest there, to show their support. So yes, there is a kind of a lack of international support, but there is also a big energy put by the diasporas into changing this situation.
Okay, well, it's a big subject. We're going to have to leave it there. Chowra Makaremi, thank you very much for coming into our studios today to talk to us.